Welcome, everybody. This is Get the Word Out with Project Next. I'm Sarah Blessing, and I'm very excited to have the executive directors of Secular Education Association with me, Zachary, Parrish, and Molly Gaines. They are here to talk about LIfeWise, which is pretty terrifying. And honestly, I can't believe this has happened to us. And we've got to organize and let everybody know what's going on to our public schools across the country. We are going to be talking about Ohio, Indiana, a little bit of Kentucky. But LifeWise is an organization that is profiting off of our children. They're making a lot of money by saying that they are offering Bible school to our public school children as young as 4. They leave the premises and they get Bible school, but they do not like to tell you what the curriculum actually is. And they're really good at recruiting like the whole class to come. And then our public education can say no to it. They cannot say no to it. They cannot stop it. And it's pretty terrifying. So we're going to give you the facts. We've done one show about this with Christy Knable a couple months ago, and now we've got people on that are the forefront of stopping this. So I'm so thankful to Zach and Molly. Zach, can you introduce yourself for a minute first, and then Molly, and then we're going to jump right in. What is LifeWise? What are you guys? What do we do to organize and protect our children?
Sure. Well, thanks for having us on. Yeah, my name's Zachary Parrish. I'm one of the co-founders of Secular Education Association, located here in Fort Wayne, Indiana. Been doing this for about 4 years now. So,
Wow. Yeah, I just found out about it a couple months ago. So that's amazing. You've been doing this for 4 years. And Molly.
Hi, yeah, I'm Molly Gaines. I am the other co-founder, the executive director of the Secular Education Association. We really appreciate you having us on. This is such an important thing that is really flying under the radar. So it's all hands on deck.
I just cannot believe, like, as soon as I found out about it, it was like boom everywhere already. So Zachary, I talked about you in the show with Christy Knable because she talked about you because you were actually sued by LifeWise. So I want to get into that story first and explain why you are doing this, why you've been doing this for 4 years. And also, amazingly, LifeWise has followed you from Ohio to now Fort Wayne, Indiana, because it is popping up everywhere. So we really need to be aware of this. So how did you find out about LifeWise? I know it had something to do with your daughter.
yeah, sure. And, I've told this story probably 100 times. So I apologize to the listeners that have already heard it. But like I say, I'm going to keep telling it because it's not just about my daughter, it's about every kid who is going to be dealing with what my daughter dealt with. So in 2021, I went into open house at my daughter's public elementary school in Defiance, Ohio, and said hello to the teachers, saw the classroom, started out real normal, what you expect at the open house. And then we sat down and the conversation kind of shifted and they started giving me what can only be described as a sales pitch for their LifeWise Academy. And it threw up red flags immediately. I'm like, why are the teachers talking to me about this religious class? And, they assured me, well, it's going to be off campus. The kids go to the Y. It's parental permission only. So if you don't want your daughter to sign up, she won't go, blah, blah, blah. Great. Okay. I just took it on the chin, listened to their sales pitch. I knew immediately my daughter wasn't going to be going because I was raised Mormon. I was a member of the LDS church until high school. I mean, much into high school, I was a member of the church. Even after my mom stopped going, I still went on my own because, I was that devoted to the faith. So I have strong feelings about organized religion. Just as it stands, right? So I knew
Yeah,
immediately
same. Me
my
too. Me
daughter
too.
would. Yeah, I knew immediately my daughter wouldn't be going. I really believe that kids should come to their own spirituality in their own time, on their own
Well, it's a
terms.
public school. There's supposed to be separation of church and state. It seems like a real issue here.
Yeah, and that was my immediate reaction, right? But I didn't know anything at the time. I didn't know what release time religious instruction was. I knew we have an establishment clause, right? I knew that much. But I immediately went home and just started researching. And I mean, I dove elbows deep into Supreme Court case law and, all of this legalese that I legitimately had to teach myself how to read it, how to cross-reference the cases that were being cited in these Supreme Court decisions. And, I really dove in. But the thing that really struck me above all that was that the teachers gave me a classroom schedule, which listed LifeWise in her schedule right along with art, gym, and music. that was the biggest red flag. I was like, teachers shouldn't be talking about this, but when they've
Yeah.
incorporated it into her school day on the schedule, that's got to be a problem, right?
Yeah. So
I,
in the school day, it's written basically Bible school in your
yeah,
public school.
it was labeled by name, LifeWise Academy, even. So I emailed the teachers. I went home, did my research, mulled it over for a little bit, and I emailed the teachers and said, "Listen, my daughter's not going to be doing this. What's she going to be doing?" Because there was no other alternative listed on the schedule. And their response was, she's going to be sent to an uninstructed study hall. And she was sent to the gymnasium. She wasn't even put in a classroom. She was sent to sit in the gymnasium with 2 or 3 other kids who didn't go, to read by herself and play on the iPad by herself. And again, keep in mind, this is 2nd grade, because the response from critics is always, well, kids have study hall, not in 2nd grade.
2nd grade, they're not
No.
left on their own
No.
for over an hour. And this is, how often is this happening?
Once a week.
Once a week.
Once
For
a
how
week.
long?
For a whole class period, whatever it was, 45 minutes, an hour. Yeah.
And like 2nd grade is such a vital time for kids to learn to read and basic math and science and history. Like those are the subjects you're wanting your kids to be learning when they're going to public education, not sit there wasting their time while everybody else gets this Bible study. I mean, I would be very upset if it were my child this was happening to. And then it sounds like the majority of the class is going to it.
Yeah, they
So
were pushing like 90% participation. And like you said, we all know how strapped the school day is to fit everything in. These teachers have to fit in. And also keep in mind, this is right after COVID. She is just getting into the process of going into a public school, right?
yes.
Before
Yeah,
that,
and how
first
hard
grade
it
was
is.
all
Yeah, after
virtual.
COVID. Yeah, they're missing basic
She was
skills. They
already
probably missed a
so
lot of
behind.
instruction time. So you're really needing to catch up your 2nd grader for
Mhm.
the basic skills so they can function. Yeah, this would be very frustrating. Now, I'm a former 5th grade teacher, and if I had, kids leave to go to a Boy Scout meeting or something and it was half the class, I could not teach new material. So this is basically an hour or whatever of dead time a week that the teacher cannot teach, even though they have all these standards and they're required to do all these things and play catch up with COVID. Yes, this seems like a problem. I and taxpayer dollars are still going towards public schools. Yes. I also want to, like, okay, so what happened? So how did you end up getting sued by LifeWise?
Yeah. Well, that was a bit later on. I actually reached out to the Freedom from Religion Foundation about all this. They sent a letter to the school laying out the constitutional issues, saying you can't be punishing these kids by putting them in a study hall. You can't be listing LifeWise on the schedule. And the school district's attorneys were basically like, yeah, there's no evidence. He's a liar. Even though I had a stack of evidence, I still have a stack of evidence. I
That's
still
so
have that
frustrating.
original handout. And I chalked it up, said whatever. What else do I do at that point? They did it again the next year in 3rd grade. They listed LifeWise on the schedule again the next year in 3rd grade. I reached out to the ACLU of Ohio, who didn't really do anything. They sent a public records request, and then they sat on it. And I documented all of this on Reddit as it was happening, and that's where Molly comes into the picture.
Yeah. So, just very quickly, I had started seeing these red signs and they were popping up in all these yards. And that is where I lived prior to where I live now, in a more rural area in Darke County, Ohio. And you see, this originated in Van Wert, Ohio, which is only about an hour away from Arcanum, where I lived. So imagine that it started in Van Wert and it's 2021. And I'm seeing these signs in Arcanum. So they've gotten that far by that point.
So it's LifeWise Academy signs?
Yes, absolutely. They say during school hours. It's a red shield. It's really funny to me now because I literally was like, we can't ignore these red flags, right? These red signs. So
Yeah.
I'm like, what is happening? So I have always been a huge proponent of the separation of church and state. I don't necessarily have religious trauma, but I do have strong feelings about organized religion. And so I am someone who have anxiety, and when I have anxiety, what helps that is to research, right? To know everything about and anything and everything that I can.
So you're just seeing these signs pop up. You're
Yep.
thinking separation of church and state.
Like,
what's going on? So you start researching.
During school hours, what does that mean?
Yes,
right?
yes.
And so you pull up the website, it's immediately questionable, and to someone who's concerned with that, who's like, what, and I could not find any opposition I mean, and I looked for days and days, and I couldn't find anybody that said anything negative or had any experience, like real experience, that wasn't speaking from the corporation itself. And the only person I could find literally was Zach, and that was on Reddit. And I reached out to him and said, my daughter's in preschool. She's going to be going to a public school. I know without a doubt that this is in my public school that she will be going to. And I'm concerned for my daughter that she is going to face exactly what your daughter has faced. And, you know, we compared notes, and it really came down to being like, you're not alone. There are more people this is happening to. They just haven't found each other yet.
Right.
And we have to do something. And really, honestly, after he told me everything that he had done, that's when my disgust, I guess you could say, or my determination sort of lit up, because he did everything we're supposed to do. He did
Right.
everything that I would have done.
So
if
he
I was
alerted the people that's supposed to do something, and nobody's doing
Exactly.
anything.
Exactly. And so I'm like, if they're not going to help you, and you've done these steps that, you know, maybe even like your average citizen wouldn't take, you've gone above and beyond and done what we are supposed to do, and you're still left with no recourse, no help. Your daughter's First Amendment rights are still being violated, and not just hers, but anyone else who's in this situation who just hasn't, you know, made themselves known. And so that was the driving force, was like, okay, well, if the institutions and the routes that we're told to take aren't working, then we will make our own. We will sound the alarm, and we will let other parents know what is coming down the pipeline and what to expect, so that no one else is alone like Zach was, and just like screaming into the abyss on Reddit, and me just finding one other dad. You know, that's all the support there was for two people who were upset with what was going on and who wanted to find out what was happening. And our goal was to make sure that that never happened again. There was never just going to be two parents screaming, you know, into nothingness about their children's rights being violated.
Right.
That's how we sort of got started.
So, okay, Zachary. So part of the problem of this, there's multiple problems, but we don't actually know what the kids are being taught. You're not seeing the curriculum. Another issue I just want to throw in there is we don't know who is teaching the children. If I'm going to volunteer at my kids' public school, I have to go through their security measures and get a background check and, you know, make sure I'm a safe person before I can go in there. They don't have to do that. LIfeWise is in charge of who can basically take the kids off campus and be alone with them. There have been instances where there's been foul play with some of these adults. I think Christy Knable told us about some. But then the other issue is just, what in the world are they teaching them? So yeah. Zachary, can you tell us, because didn't you want to know what was happening when your kid was sitting there in the study hall?
Well, you know, again, like I said, my daughter was never going to be going. So what was being taught wasn't a concern personally to me, but parents deserve the right to know what their kids are being taught, right? This has always been a right-wing conservative talking point. They're the ones that pushed for curriculum transparency in the public schools. So it only made sense to me that this program should be held to those same standards because they are happening in the public school day, right? And yeah, they were not letting anybody look at this curriculum, not the school boards, not parents, not even clergy members, right? They were approaching churches and saying, will you sponsor this program? But no, you can't actually see the curriculum that we're teaching these kids.
And they're acting like it's really safe Bible school, basic teachings of Jesus. They're acting like it's safe.
Yeah, they're acting like it's really like simplistic and non-denominational and like everyone's welcome and it's
everybody's Jesus. This is fine. It's going to teach kindness and wonderful things, but then they're not actually showing the lesson plans.
Right.
And that's the thing. They lean into this. It's character education. It's character development. 5 years ago, that was called social emotional learning, and these same people threw an absolute fit about it, right? So again, it's just another contradiction. There are so many of them that we find throughout this program and these supporters. But yeah, the main thing was non-denominational too, right? Well, I've always kind of thought of that as a non-starter. Like there is a denomination, whether or not you want to label it Christianity in and of itself as a denomination, right? And then there are how many different versions of Christianity. So yeah, I dug in a little bit. I filled out the form to fill out the application. I did the background check. I did all the training. And after I did all that, I found the curriculum, all of it. So I published it. We put it on our website. And yeah, LifeWise sent a cease and desist letter, a pull it down letter. You copyright infringing us, blah, blah, blah. And I said, yeah, I don't really care. If you're going to sue me. And they did.
So you knew this could be a possibility and you did it anyway.
Zach and I had many meetings and many conversations about, like, we know exactly what's going on, but if this is what needs to be done to make it clear to everyone else that they're trying to hide something, that what is the reason with hiding the curriculum? Why would you sue a public school parent who is just trying to find out what's going on?
Why would you sue for just plainly showing what you're actually doing? That's the biggest red flag I've ever heard. Because you're trying to say, don't you tell people what we're teaching your 4-year-old children. That's like, hang on.
And they can say, oh, copyright all they want. But here's the thing, a copyright lawsuit really hinges on the fact that we would have to be using the product, using the curriculum, and teaching our own, like you get what I'm saying? Like making money from using it. Like that's
you weren't making any money. You were just trying to educate parents, teachers, clergy, what is actually happening in these off-campus Bible school lessons during the public school day. That seems like something LifeWise should have been doing. LifeWise should have been like, here's day 1 lesson plan. Here's day 2. They should have been. And
we want to make it clear. We want to make it clear that it wasn't just like Zach being like, let me see the curriculum, and then being like, no, it was Zach. It was hundreds of others' parents. It was clergy. It was superintendents. It was school boards. It was principals. They would not give it to anyone.
Wow.
So we were forced to do what we did, and we decided really to take that threat on ourselves. I mean, Zach and I are not rich people by any means, but I told him, I said, I will do whatever I can, to make sure that you don't go into debt, that we don't go into debt, trying to, be journalists, right? And figure out what's going on, like independent journalists.
I'm just really thankful for you two for being so brave and doing this.
It was really scary because
it sounds very stressful to take on a giant organization. And
they were worth millions even then.
Yeah, I was gonna say, they have a lot of money.
Yeah. So, I mean, they were worth millions even then. And that was a big, huge thing, was allowing them or basically pulling the wool and the sheet off of what was really going on. And like, Zach, tell her specifically about what the settlement was, like what ended up happening because of that.
Yeah. So again, my main point was never to put this curriculum out there for people to use. That's what their claims were in the lawsuit. Well, we're worried that if this curriculum is up there, people are going to take it and make their own Bible classes. They're going to use our work and then make their own classes without paying us the licensing fee.
It's not even their work anyway. It's from the Gospel Project. So they're already buying it or stealing it or using it from the Southern Baptist Convention.
Right. And that goes back to the non-denominational thing. They're claiming to be non-denominational when their curriculum is directly from the Southern Baptist Convention. The Southern Baptist Convention wrote this material, and you can go back and look to when this Gospel Project first came about. There were even Southern Baptist pastors who came up and said, to label this non-denominational is a lie, right? Because we know who wrote it. We know they're not going to put aside their own personal conviction and beliefs to make this non-denominational. And of course they didn't, right? Because they were, religious leaders who wrote this in the Southern Baptist sphere. So the settlement came down to pretty much, they had to post it. They had to put it up there for people to see, because I wasn't going to settle. I was going to fight it all the way because I knew they didn't have a copyright case against me. Thankfully, the Electronic Frontier Foundation out of California jumped on the case for me pro bono. If it wouldn't have been for them.
So you got free lawyer help to fight this.
We got some free. I also hired somebody here locally in Fort Wayne, because it was in, Fort Wayne district courts here. So they wanted somebody local who could work with the court, knew the court. We did end up paying for his services, but the bulk of the work was done by the Electronic Frontier.
It just sounds very stressful, because when lawyers and stuff get involved, the money, the time, what can they accuse you of? Because they're so much stronger than you. This group, it sounds very intimidating.
Just to put it into perspective, we never saw a bill for all of the work that EFF did. But we ourselves, that lawyer that we had to have, and that was on EFF's recommendation, was you have to have a lawyer that works in the court where they've taken the case in, right? And so even that we had to crowdfund in order to afford, and it was like over $10,000, wasn't it, Zach?
Yeah, I
So,
would say that. Yeah.
so think about that. This lawyer did this much of the work, and we
Yeah.
had to fund thousands of dollars.
Right.
That we did not have.
Right.
And EFF came in, and oh God, we could never repay them. We don't even know how much money, but they did the bulk of the work. So
thankful to them.
Yeah, if not for them. And then here's the other thing. We reached out for help from a lot of organizations that have to do with education, that have to do with secularism, and none of them wanted to help.
But you think it's because it was too big? You think they were intimidated, or maybe they weren't aware?
I don't know. I can't speak to what their reasoning was.
Yeah.
But I think
I will. I'll say that, you know, EFF specifically deals with digital stuff, internet stuff, copyright stuff, right? So this was very much in their vein, whereas some of the other organizations that we reached out to, it was tangentially related, right? But it wasn't necessarily their specialty. I think that probably had a lot to do with it.
That makes sense.
Yeah. But then, you know, the basis of the settlement was that LIfeWise, I pulled the curriculum down off of our website, but only once LIfeWise agreed to make it all available for the public to review and see. So thanks to that settlement, you can now review the curriculum. They put a bunch of restrictions on it. You have to give them your name, your email address. You can only see it for 48 hours. And you can't reproduce it. You can take half a screenshot of half a page. You can't take a screenshot of a full page. You know, I wasn't exactly happy with these terms, but the lawyer said, listen, this is probably the best you're going to get, right? So I had to kind of take it.
It's all wild. But I mean,
and
I'm sorry. Are they going to sue every single person that prints it off when they get, I mean.
They will. They have the money to do so. So yes.
And keep hiring lawyers.
Part of what you agree to is to not talk about it, right? So you can see it, you can look at it, but then you're not supposed to reproduce it. You're not supposed to talk about it. Well, part of the settlement was good luck suing me again, so I will talk about it, right? I can tell you what they're teaching. They're teaching anti-Semitic stuff. They're teaching the dinosaurs were on the ark with Noah, right? So these kids are going back to school, learning about evolution, learning about biology, learning about history, and it's being completely contradicted with what they're being taught when they go to these Bible classes.
They're going to the Bible classes and they're saying the pledge, the Christian pledge. And, you know, after they've already been in school saying the Pledge of Allegiance to our flag. So it's very Christian nationalist in flavor. There are several internal documents that we've uncovered where, you know, they might not necessarily be like teaching it in a lesson, but they force their volunteers and their teachers to agree and to sign these agreements that say things like a marriage between a woman and a woman is a sin. That being a single mom is a sin, that, you know, having your boyfriend live with you outside of marriage is a sin, being gay, being trans, all these things are sins. And so that's the overarching.
And also there was one part that Christy Knable mentioned. If your parents don't agree with what LIfeWise is teaching, you should go with LIfeWise. You should.
It's not LIfeWise. In the actual materials, it's God.
You should go with what God is saying,
yes,
and they are God. These lessons are God.
It's basically if your parents don't believe in God and they want you to do the opposite of God, you should always pick God and obey God over your parents.
And it's indoctrination, like you all mentioned. Just to clarify what that means, they want to get these kids young, because young kids are just kind of trying to be good and listening. And when an adult teaches them something, they believe them and just like, okay, this is what I need to do.
You were a 5th grade teacher, right? You know how it is. They're little sponges.
Yes.
And it's everything. It's not just education. It's conversations. It's TV. It's magazines. It's music. They are sponges. And so they actually the evangelicals have a philosophy, right? I guess you'd want to call it, or a plan. It's called the 4 to 14 window. And it came out in the 80s. And it really is them saying, like, this is the most impressionable children are between the ages of 4 and 14. And so this is when we need to target them. And this is when we need to convert them to our religion, because they are statistically more inclined to keep that for the rest of their life.
My kid,
others.
My kid is 15, and when he turned 14, I legit started seeing him questioning things more. as
Yep.
like an adult, and I was so
Absolutely.
proud of him for figuring stuff out and
Mhm.
things that I didn't know had happened to him. He
Yeah.
starts telling me about, and it's so yeah, you're so right. So 4 to 14,
Unfortunately,
that's
they
the
are
age
right.
they're starting to get
Yeah.
it.
But
That
think about that. What are 4 to 14? That's about our elementary school. And
Well,
that is
you
where
don't need a
LifeWise
research
started.
study to know that either. Like just being around children, you know that is when they're the most impressionable.
I
Right.
mean, they're believing in certain fun things at this young age that aren't true. Yeah, I mean,
Exactly that. Yeah.
and
So
so
go ahead.
first of all, it's not this blanket Christianity. It's a
No.
certain type. It's indoctrination. It's teaching science things that aren't true, like dinosaurs were on the ark. It's
Mhm.
teaching that if you're not living this certain life, you're sinning.
Yeah.
And
The
so it's
price of
very
sin
against
is to burn in hell.
yeah, and then you're teaching about the hell thing. We talked a lot about that with Christy Knable. You're scaring the ever living daylights out of the children so that they want to go to heaven when they die. That is so scary. And they also got to save their friends.
I
They
was
got
gonna
to
say,
get the other kids in the class because they got to save them. So I really get angry when they
yeah,
say that
this is
stuff
the
to
part that
them.
really gets me.
It
So
gets me
I'm
too.
with you. I'm with you 100% because we hear it. We hear all of kinds of stories of children coming home, and I couldn't even tell you all the different faiths that the children are. The atheists, humanists, Sikh, Hindu, Buddhists, all of these different, but are coming home and questioning their family's beliefs and saying, well, I was told I'm going to go and burn in hell. And then they're not being able to sleep at night because they're worried about a concept that they've never heard of until at their public school when their peers telling them about it. And it's really set up to be, you know, gross, I guess is the word, because kids naturally care about each other and they don't want their friends to burn in hell. So when you're telling a group of children, like, oh, all your other friends or anyone who doesn't believe in Jesus or believe in this Christianity is going to pay the ultimate price, that kid is also scared for their friends and for their people and their family and anyone else that they think is going to burn or hurt.
And who
Right.
would think this was going to be happening during your public school day?
Exactly.
I mean, it's not just my poor kid is getting ignored.
No.
These poor children are being indoctrinated to something terrifying, and it could make them question their family's religion, or if they don't have one, it could make them terrified that they don't have one because, oh no, their parents are going to go to hell.
Mhm.
I mean, and then
It's
they're teaching them fake things about science
Yep.
and about evolution. And then they're teaching them that being gay, being trans, being all sorts of things, a single parent
Yep.
is a sin.
Mhm.
So, of course, they don't want their curriculum to come out. I mean, it's pretty
Wouldn't it doesn't
obvious.
it sound much better when we say it's just non-denominational and it's innocent Bible study?
Innocent Bible study sounds great, and so it hasn't happened in Harrison County where I live, but it has happened. We do have LifeWise in Floyd County. We cannot stop it. Schools cannot stop it. In Indiana, school boards cannot stop it, but they can in Kentucky, from what I know. School
Mhm.
boards can stop it in Kentucky. And like it doesn't matter how many people don't want it as long as they go through their 20-point plan of work to get it started in your public schools in your county. It's coming up and it's there, and these kids are going off campus for this Bible study. They're also given prizes, correct, given treats, and they can bring them back into the school building and be like, look, I got all these treats, and then that makes the other kids want to go. So that's a great way to get the whole class to come. And
Yep.
like Christy Knable was saying, well, you could get your school board to pass like rules that say kids can't bring the toys in, they can't bring the candy back in. But that's really hard to manage. Like a teacher's already overworked. They
Mhm.
already need to teach the kids these skills. You can't also just make sure that they're monitoring every single tiny little prize and candy and thing being said when they get back from the class. So even though we could, which I think we should make those if we're able to, it's just putting this tiny little band-aid on this giant flood of a problem.
Well, I think that comes to the district needs to make these rules, right? And then if these rules are not followed, this program cannot work with the district. That's where we need to draw these lines. It's also I just want to touch on Indiana school districts can't tell this program no because this program directly lobbied. This nonprofit organization went to the Indiana State House themselves with a law that they wrote with the help of First Liberty to mandate that schools have to do it. This isn't just something that happened, right?
No.
This isn't just something they supported. They wrote these law changes. They took them to the state legislators, and they didn't just do it in Indiana. They did it in Indiana, Ohio, Oklahoma, Texas. They tried to do it in Nebraska, Alabama, Arkansas. They are doing this all over the country. They are expanding these laws. And you know, I said First Liberty helped them write this. First Liberty also threatened to sue school districts in Ohio who said you can't bring candy back because that's our First Amendment right. So keep that in mind. At my daughter's school, I can't send her cookies for her snack because it's a sugary sweet and it's against their policy. But when LifeWise wants to do it, it's a First Amendment right. I don't think so.
And really what they're doing, it's the same story from the very top to the bottom, right? Is they take these things and they spin them in a way that should work but doesn't, right? So like, here's the thing that you have to understand. If you've never heard of RTRI, but you do remember being taken to a trailer on your school's property.
What does that stand for, RTI?
RTRI is Release Time for Religious Instruction.
Okay.
And it is nationwide. There's a precedent from the Supreme Court that says that you can do this. I'm an elder millennial. So I remember the 90s and the What Would Jesus Do bracelets in the trailers and the parking lot of our elementary school. That is what they were functioning under. But even that wasn't being done according to the law because it cannot be on school property.
Right.
So here's what's the important thing to understand. You're going to hear when you start to research this or when you start to talk to people about it, you're going to hear this has been around since the 50s. It's legal. It's fine. It's great. No, the truth is that it has been around since then in small, tiny little pockets across the country where that majority religion was already the cultural and societal powerhouse in that area. So in other words, like an example would be in New York, in a borough that's primarily Jewish, that has a huge synagogue, they're going to have Jewish RTRI. And they have had it for years and years and years. And it's been fine because the majority of those children are already in Judaism. They're already practicing. And historically, these organizations are done just by like that synagogue or that church, not
but,
a corporate.
But this one is taking kids that aren't this religion, and turning them into that religion. So that's a big difference. Exactly. I personally am against all of it. I don't think we should have religion in public schools.
Yes. But we agree 100%.
I do see a difference there.
We agree 100%. And really what it comes down to is this needs to be relitigated. It was never fair. It should have never happened. It did. And it worked in areas, but very sporadically. That's why you've never heard of it, because it never became a nationwide spread out thing, because it is unconstitutional in practice. So go ahead.
I want to cover two things before we leave. I want to know, how is LifeWise making their money? We've said that they have millions of dollars. How are they profiting off of this? And then the second thing is, what do we do as parents, as organizers? What do we do to stop this? Because I know a big part of it is getting on shows like this and just letting people know what is going on, telling the educators, telling the school board people, telling everybody what LifeWise actually is instead of the propaganda they're feeding them.
Yeah.
But what else can we do? So first, who knows about the money? Why are they so wealthy?
I just want to clarify before we answer those two questions, something that Molly said. She said this was allowed. There's precedent for this. It's really important to understand the precedent was that schools could allow these programs, not that they had to, not that this is a parental right, because that's the narrative that's being pushed by LifeWise, right?
So now the schools cannot say no to it. That's what's so terrifying.
That's what they're trying to do.
And that's not what the precedent was, right? It's never been what it was. It was always the school's choice whether or not to allow this, because this comes down to attendance. Right? Nobody's going to argue that you don't have the right to take your kid out of school whenever you want to as a parent. Great. But the thing to understand here is when we're talking about these programs, they are still being marked as in attendance at the school, right? That's the big distinction here. So again, that comes back down to funding. All of our public school funding is calculated by students and hours of attendance. So when they say no public funds are being used for this program, I mean, it's pretty much embezzlement, right? When you're calculating these hours for these students that are in class when they're not actually in class, it's a big issue.
So you're saying our government has a legit case to fight this, and stop it because they
I'm
are
saying that, but
using
I'm not a lawyer, so
curriculum hours. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
it just
I mean,
does
because
seem.
think about it. You were a fifth grade teacher, right? So like, if a parent wanted to come and take their kid out, even for something that they need, like therapy, they have to fight tooth and nail to get that approved and to still be, for all of that to work.
Like
But
my
that's not
kid
the
can
case
only
for
miss
these.
5 days of school a year before it counts as not excused. I have to get excuses
Mhm.
from the doctor. So
Yes, but
this would total more than that through the
oh,
whole year. It would count
oh,
more than 5 days worth of instruction time.
yes,
Yeah. Yeah.
yes, absolutely, an hour a week,
Phew,
if
that's a
not
lot.
more. In some states, they allow it to do more.
Okay, so how are
so,
they
yes,
worth so much? I
yeah.
just don't understand the money
Yeah,
thing.
you're not supposed to.
It's twofold, right? Local programs, you have to make this distinction, especially when you're talking about the money. You should really make this distinction when you're talking about all of it. There is this LifeWise corporate level, and then there is your local LifeWise program, right? We always want to say, like, and make sure we understand most of the people running these local programs are well enough intentioned. They believe they're doing the right thing. They are being duped as much as the next guy in most
Right.
cases. A
And they
lot of
probably
them,
think they're helping. I'm sure most of them think
Yeah.
or all of them think they're doing something good for these children.
Yep.
yes. But all of the money for these local programs comes directly from the local community. LifeWise has over $35 million in revenue last year. None of that, hardly any of that, trickles down to the local programs. They will do a grant match of like $1,500, right? But only if your local community raises that $1,500 first. So I can't say no money comes back down to the local community because there's a tiny, tiny amount that'll come back down to the local community. But almost exclusively, it is raised by soliciting your local churches, getting these old ladies at the congregation to donate, getting small businesses to donate, getting
People to leave their savings to you when they die. Like they have a huge whole thing about their trusts and wills and bequeathing. And if you go, listen, this is a crazy exercise. If you get bored, go on your Google and just type obituary LifeWise Academy and see what you see.
Wow. So a lot of people are leaving their money to LifeWise when they die.
Then you
and
also have to add in that they've got huge donors of like
second
these
part.
huge orgs. So like First Liberty, National Association of Christian Lawmakers, Patriot Mobile, the Heritage Foundation gave them a award this last year. So they're getting these huge donations through these different sources, PACs in some instances, and all these different things that you can't really source the money back to where, but we know from the fact that they've been platformed and they've been sponsored and they've been paid, and like there's all these different things that connect them to these organizations, and all of which pretty much were involved in Project 2025.
So they're not necessarily making money from these classes. People are giving them money for this
they're making money.
organization.
They're making
Yeah.
money. They're both.
Both?
It comes
Okay.
from all over the place. So so you have to understand that you have different revenue streams. So you've got huge dark money, right? You've got well-meaning people that are rich leaving them big stuff. You've got regular people leaving them what they have left in their wills and trusts. And then like Zach said, you have to raise so much money to have this program going. So for instance, if you only have 5 kids going to your LifeWise at your district, there's like a minimum of like what, 20 kids?
Yeah.
So, and how much is that?
$30 a student. And I think
It's $30 a student. So it doesn't matter if you have 5 kids going in your district, you have to pay like you have 20 kids going at $30 a piece.
It might be
And then-
50. It might
Do
be
what?
50 kids. It might be 50 kids.
It might be
I don't
50.
remember off the top of my head.
The point
Okay.
being that local LifeWise has to fundraise in order to meet its goals to pay for these children that are going, even though they don't really have to pay. Does that make sense? Like,
So whoever wants to
don't pay
start
the
the
program.
program has got to fundraise in that community for that program.
So all that
Okay.
money funnels up, and then that program has to pay corporate LifeWise for the curriculum and the t-shirts and the merch and the treats and the whatever else. So all of this money is going upwards into corporate, and you never see it come back. So like Zach said, like they'll do matches for their own thing or whatever, like their own district program. They'll match however much that district raised, and then that'll help them out or whatever. But you know how traditionally you'll see church programs doing things like food drives or clothing drives or raising money for, I don't know, someone's cancer treatment, or to pay off the lunch debt. Wouldn't that be great?
Yeah.
Never. Zach and I have been at this since 2021, and we have never documented any sort of event or coordinated effort or
To like
anything
actually help people.
that would actually help anyone, except for just raise the money so they can program and they can go to corporate. So there's no money coming back into the community. There's no help coming back into the community.
And do the people that are like the teachers of this, are they getting paid?
Yes, they
It
are
depends.
employees.
It depends.
Well,
It's
yeah.
not a resounding yes.
I've
It
heard
depends
that
on
there's
the
some
district.
like volunteers.
Yeah, a
So there
lot.
can be volunteers that aren't getting any money for doing it.
That's the other part of this. Everything varies so much from district to district. Everything, every aspect of this is going to vary district to district, community to community.
Except for the basics. Like, they all will have a certain amount of money that they're allowed to have in their little coffer, no matter how much they make. So if they make a ton of money, that goes up to corporate, but then corporate
It's still the
allows
same
them
amount.
access to a certain amount in their own specific district coffer. So, there are things that are overarching that are, like I said, about not ever seeing anything to go back into the community. That's from our own observation. I could be wrong, but the pattern exists that, majority, most often it is never for the community, and they target these areas that are rural, that are already low income, that are already struggling. Those are some of the first places we see in a state where LifeWise will really infiltrate. And so they are absolutely preying on food insecurity. They're preying on these kids that don't get treats and don't get toys and trinkets and may not feel like they're seen or heard, right? And so there's a lot at play here, and it gets very convoluted.
And,
But
and I want to talk about the Christian nationalism for just a minute. I've done a few shows on this because it's a big deal. So this is sort of like getting little kids to be involved in Christian nationalism and get them all to think the same things so that we can kind of control them and manipulate them. And that is one way to kind of have an authoritarian type dictatorship type government where it's not freedom of religion, freedom of speech. It's everybody thinks this same way.
Yep.
And that's why we've got this dark money. This is a way to control giant amounts of the American population, start them young and move up, and then get them to vote a certain way, get them to think what we're telling them.
Yep.
And like another part of Christian nationalism that sometimes those of us that aren't in it don't see is they're really good at like getting other things out. Like they're like, don't listen to regular music. Don't listen to regular TV. Don't read regular books at the library. You should only read these types of books, or watch these types of movies, or listen to this type of like safe Christian music. So they do a really good job of narrowing their lives so that they don't see reality, and that they also fear reality. Like, oh, there's gay people over there. That's sinning and that's scary. Look away, stay away from it. So it's just a lot of effort.
Yeah, and you'll see a lot of LifeWise supporters that really parrot the whole woke liberal agenda of the public school trope, and the whole like, well, they're teaching them to be gay and why can't they have God? Like, there's a lot of that.
There's a lot of misinformation about what's happening in public schools.
Yeah, and they're really leaning into that. And LifeWise isn't going to correct the narrative. But those are the people that support them, or people that truly think that, there are litter boxes in the school, or that, the rainbow flag is making the kids gay. And they're like, well, they can have Jesus if they can have all this other woke stuff, then why can't they learn about Jesus? Well, one is your religion and one is someone's identity. Like these, you know what I mean? So, but like, these are complex ideals, and I'm not saying that they can't handle that or they don't understand that, but they choose not to, and LifeWise chooses to lean into it. And they really have gotten this in their head with all of it, really, about parental choice. Well,
oh yeah,
what Zach and I always say is, when your parental choice starts to trample on my child and my parental choice, then that's when we have a problem.
Right.
That's a problem, and we're seeing it, right? And so like Zach said earlier, traditionally this was never a parental choice. It was the school board's choice. So if it was going to work for your school, for your district. So like, for example, again, if we go back to that imaginary Jewish school in the borough in New York, like, not to stereotype, but that school might say, yeah, we can absolutely do RTRI with our local synagogue, and it would be okay for them. That's not the case if you go 5 states over into rural wherever and the majority of kids are Protestant or of that nature. That's not going to work. But that's what we're seeing that they're trying to do. Their goal, they actually state that their mission is to reach all unchurched public school kids. So they're not coming to reinforce traditions like this was meant to. They are coming to convert. And they are very upfront with that.
Convert your very young children and then keep it going each year. You started in preschool or kindergarten, and then you move up to first grade, and then you move up to second grade, and then you keep it going in preschool and kindergarten. And so
And
you're just
yes. And what the other thing that people I don't think they really understand is like, well, my child's not going to go and they're not going to listen to that and they're not going to be a part of it. So it's fine. Please understand that they are very specifically doing this in a way that the kids that do attend come back and proselytize to their peers. And even though the teacher,
again, they're trying to save them from hell.
LIfeWise and the teacher and the trinkets may not be enough to make your kid want to join, but you know what will? All of their friends saying you should. Yeah. And that's what they're really counting on. And that is what we see time and time and time again.
And it works. It works a lot. So it'll start to be a few kids go into these classes and then more and more keep joining. Yeah. It's
what you see when it comes into a school, there will be low numbers. And if no one's there, like there's no concerned parent or C's not involved, and there's no one there to say, oh, wait a second. Then you will see those, those 3 or 4 kids turn into 80, 90% participation, like Zach talked about in Defiance. But then in other cases, you will see where there's some people that are like, wait a second. And maybe they're in a more progressive area or in a purple city or in a blue area, and they have time and money and resources to really question what's going on. And you'll see then that those people, you might not see the small amount of kids shoot up. It's a little slower. So it just really depends. Like Zach said, there's so many different factors that it's just, you have to educate yourself, and then you have to take all that education and apply it to your local situation.
So, and I think it's here in our Borden school. So Borden is pretty close to where I live. And I went to an Indivisible meeting last week where one of your all's friends, Susan Pittman, talked about LIfeWise. And a person raised their hand and said, well, I called the local Borden school and asked about this. And they said, it's during lunch and recess. You don't need to worry. And the other people in the audience like clapped. And then Susan's like, no. You need to realize this is going to grow. So as this grows, they cannot keep doing it during recess and lunch. It will be during other classes and then other classes, because you can't fit all those grades being taught by a few people during lunch and recess or library or, study hall. Like, it's going to also impact the curriculum. You cannot avoid it. So as it grows, the problem grows too, about how much school time they're missing.
I think it's interesting too, like if their mission is to bring this education to all the public school students, but yet they're only doing it in a couple grades and a couple classes, that in and of itself is so discriminatory, and it never gets addressed because I don't know why it never gets addressed. From our perspective, we don't want them bringing it to anybody, right? But if your mission is to bring it to everybody, why aren't you bringing it to everybody? Right? Like, I just don't understand that, but that's a side point. So sorry, we need a tangent there.
I just think it's really creepy how they start it with the youngest too. It's really gross.
Yeah, and I was gonna say that's another thing for everyone to keep in mind. They historically and traditionally have always targeted elementary schools. LIfeWise Academy started with just elementary schools. They have middle school and high school curriculum that they are giving credit for in some states.
That is crazy.
Yep.
So please understand where this is headed.
I don't understand how this is legal. I don't understand.
I'll tell you, one bad precedent, okay? That one bad case set a tone, and it sets a precedent, right? That's why it's the word, for all of this to snowball. And historically, we have seen this conservatism take over and really lean hard into these things that like aren't true and aren't happening, and like making them worse. So if you are going from like the original case, Zorach, then you can go all the way up to a more recent case of Kennedy, where it was the coach that was praying on the field. So like, you'll see if you start to study these things like Zach and I have, that this has been a process that they've been trying to do forever. Since we took the religion out of public schools, they've been trying to shove it back in. So
so what do we do? What do we do, you guys? So first off, everybody should follow this group that you two have started, and thank you for starting it. So Secular Education Association, it's on Facebook. You can join their group, and they have a great website. You can go to the website, you can put your email in to get newsletters and updates. So that's the first way to stay informed, organized, get with other people that are trying to stop this.
Yep.
So after we do that, okay, so we're going to follow you all on Facebook. I would also say share this show, especially to people involved in public education, or any parents where their kids are going to public education and don't know whether that's already happened or going to happen. What else can we do to fight this, to stop it?
It definitely starts with educating yourself about the issues, informing yourself. It's a huge disservice to go out and say things that aren't true, to be pushing false information, because the narrative of critics against us is always that we're pushing misinformation. So it's very important that that's not happening, that you're pushing facts and you're pushing accurate information. So first and foremost, you have to inform yourself and educate yourself. And then, you need to educate others in your community. You need to educate your churches, your small business owners, your school board members. They need to understand that maybe they can't just say no to this program, but there are things they can do, like you mentioned earlier, limiting this to lunch and recess. That is one of the best things they can do. And it might not be.
So could they do that on their school board or whatever? Could they make that you can only do it during lunch and recess?
You want to be very careful with how you word the policy. You don't want to be restrictive. But yes, you can put these guidelines in place. It's all going to be ran through the district attorneys. They should know how to handle this. But also, you don't need to just take your district attorney's word verbatim, because there's a lot of district attorneys who are on board with this and will just say we can't do anything about it.
Oh, wow. So if their attorney says we can't do anything about it, you need to get other lawyer people, other people involved.
Indiana's get a second opinion. Get a second opinion. Indiana's law specifically says that schools have to coordinate with these programs to pick a time that is the least disruptive to instructional time. That in and of itself is an allowance to limit this to lunch and recess. Now, if you look at Ohio's law is you have to adopt a policy to cooperate with these programs. So it's a bit different than Indiana, where you don't have to have a policy, you just have to work with these programs, right? So every state is going to be different. I know, Indiana Central here on this program, but this is a national problem. So you have to understand your own state laws. You have to understand whether you're a may state or a shall state. Like you said, Indiana and Ohio, they can't say no, but in Kentucky they can, right?
Yeah.
In West Virginia, they can say no. So you have to understand your state laws. You have to understand what this program is, how it's working. Do public records requests. Talk to your school board. Get the information, because LIfeWise is talking to your school board. LIfeWise is talking to your superintendents, even if you don't see it, even if it's not on the agenda yet. I promise you, they're in talks with somebody at that school. So do public records requests. We have a template on our website for each state. Each state has different terminology, different laws to cite. We have a breakdown on our website of a template for each individual state so that you can do these public records requests. We've got a walkthrough on our website, things you should watch out for if LIfeWise is in your school, because that's one of the other big things you have to do. You need to watch these programs. You need to know who is involved. You mentioned at the top of the program some bad actors. There are a lot of them, maybe not directly involved with LIfeWise, but at least tangentially involved at the churches LIfeWise is taking them to. We have found countless predators active in these churches LIfeWise is taking them to. If you look at DeKalb Eastern up here by me in Fort Wayne, a little bit north of me, they were going to host LIfeWise at a factory, a chemical dye factory. They couldn't find a church to do it. So they were going to take these kids during the school day to a dangerous chemical dye factory and have the class in a boardroom. If that's not bad enough, they had a violent sexual predator with specific charges against minors that worked at that factory, it would be nothing for that guy to isolate one of those childs and take them, right? And again, this guy should be able to have a job. He did his time, whatever. I'm not going to sit here and
Let's
bring
just not.
pedophile,
Right.
but like, it's LifeWise's responsibility to make
So
sure they're
just
not
realize
putting the
we
children
don't know
around these people.
who is in the room with these kids when they get taken off the school
I
building.
mean,
It's
they're
very
taken
dangerous.
they're taken to what is essentially, I mean, it is an unsecured second location. That's what we're talking about. We spend millions of dollars every year on technology and procedure and staff and things to keep our public school campuses closed and safe. And then you're just going to let these people walk in and take them to like a place that doesn't have any of that. Then you've undone everything we've done and paid to do, right? And to keep these kids safe, because you're taking them somewhere that anyone can get to them. And like a good example of that is like, I own a shirt, a LifeWise shirt that says LifeWise teacher. So anyone can go and buy that shirt. And if I wanted to, I could go up to my local school and act like I am who I say I am, and a LifeWise teacher, and go ahead and try to take those kids out. And I like to think most of our schools are pretty well prepared for something like that. But I'm telling you, they're not.
Yeah. No. Yeah. And we need pastors and priests to come up and stand against this. I know here in Floyd County, one of our big Catholic churches, St. Francis, Mount St. Francis. They had a big festival a couple months ago, and LifeWise was there. They had a booth. And then we had, I think, Harvest Homecoming. I think they had a float in the parade, and I think they had a booth. We need to be alerting everybody that this is not a trusted organization, and we should be saying no. They should not be at a Catholic. They should not be at a Catholic event. That religion is completely different from Catholic stuff.
And if those Catholic leaders were taking the time to go and look at the curriculum, we have had, and within our organization, we have had clergy from all different kinds of religions: Jewish, Catholic, Methodist.
I know a Baptist preacher that's against this.
I was going to say, and they have actually gone and taken the time to look at the curriculum and have come away with that. And their instinct and what they usually do is they'll write a letter to their congregation saying, do not send your kids to this.
Yes, we need lots of that. That's a good idea.
This does not match up with our curriculum or our doctrine. This does not match up with our belief system. It is not what we want our children to learn in our community. So we are recommending you not send them. And we have those letters on our website that were written from So other clergy is more than welcome to go and to read those letters and to reference, and then to go and look at the curriculum for themselves and make that determination. But that's what we really need, because Zach and I and all of our thousands of members, we have over 12,000 members. I cannot tell you how many times that we have been accused of being anti-religion, Satanist, demonic, anti-Christian, just these awful things. And
everybody should be able to freely practice whatever religion they want. We shouldn't be indoctrinating children to this religion during public school. I mean,
and we try to tell people our organization is made up of all kinds of faithful people of all different faiths. So it's not about anti-religion. It is about the neutrality of our public schools. Go ahead.
Yes.
And like you mentioned earlier, this isn't just about religion. They are indoctrinating these kids to a world view to make them voters, to make them future voters. In the anti-religious argument, we're giving 3 presentations at churches this Sunday. So if I was some Satanist, would these churches be inviting me in to give a presentation? I don't think so. Right.
Yeah. The Lutheran, pastor Richard Gainsier that is doing a new show with us on Project Next, he is actively fighting LifeWise. He helped stop it in Oldham County because he lives in Kentucky. And I was like talking to him one day, and he's like, oh, I just found out this teacher's trying to start something similar to this. I'm like, what are you going to do? And he's like, well, I'm going to set up a meeting with him and talk to him face to face and try to get this stopped. And that's how you have to do this. You have to face it head on when it comes to your local schools. You got to make sure all your local people know, all your local church people, all of the pastors and priests around here understand this is not what they are saying it is. It sounds fishy to me hearing it, but I understand why a lot of people think it sounds great. But we've got to say, no, let's tell you the truth here.
You need to do it before it's there too, because they do this behind closed doors. You need to be raising awareness seeing where they're at, because like you mentioned earlier, they have a 10-step program to bring this to a local community. You can look up on our website. We've got a spreadsheet. You can filter through and find your district, search for your district, and see what step they're on in this 10-step process.
Yeah, I've seen that. That's very helpful.
You really want to start fighting this before it's there, because oftentimes you're not going to know it's in your school until it's already launched and in your school if you're not looking and doing the work.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the first time we hear this is what we hear over and over again. I didn't know about this until my son brought home the permission slip. And by that time, they're launched. They've already got people on board. They've probably already got kids enrolled. And it is really hard at that point, right? To sort of.
What if you put your kid in it and then like a month later, they're telling you stuff and you realize you want to get them out? Can you get them out easily?
No. So what we found is that does happen. And it's happened even more now that people are starting to talk about it and the discussion is starting to get raised. In some school districts, I hate to say this, but they treat it more like an opt-out program than an opt-in. So like if you are already, like if they will just opt your child in unless you specifically say, do not send my kid.
Oh, that's scary.
You have to fill out a form to withdraw them. And on top of that, like we mentioned earlier, there is this student fee. Once you opt your child out, that LIfeWise program is still paying for that student. Their internal directions and documentation say that the count of students can never go down. So even if students are being pulled out
so
of
even
program,
though it might lessen, they're still getting
counting.
Oh, that's scary. So you can get them out, but you need to go to the school and fill out a form?
Yes. Yep. You have to actually fill out a form that says, I am withdrawing my child from LIfeWise and, et cetera, et cetera.
And if you opt in kindergarten, does it keep you enrolled for first grade, or are you having to sign another one?
That's one of those things sort of different from.
It depends on your school district.
We've seen it both ways. We've seen it where you sign your kid up in kindergarten and they are essentially signed up until they graduate senior year. We have also seen it where schools make them do it fresh every year. So
that could be another requirement.
Yes, you should put into your policy, because every other form you fill out at the school is something you have to fill out every year. It's absurd.
So add that to the requirements from the school board.
Yep.
Put it on there. You have to sign up for this every year.
I mean, think about that. What other form do you fill out once in kindergarten and never again until senior year?
I have to fill out marching band forms every year. My kid does it, and
some of us have to fill out forms half a year. Like that's crazy, right? So that's a big issue too. And that's the other thing to keep in mind is that you really only need to know your student's name and their school to sign them up. And so we have custody issues.
What if one parent supports it and another parent doesn't?
We have grandparents signing kids up, but parents not knowing about it.
Oh, man.
We have a lot of interfamily issues and turmoil because of that, too.
Not shocked that they're not following through to make sure the appropriate people are filling out those forms, since they don't make sure the appropriate people are teaching them. Yeah.
Why would you do that?
Okay. I'm really thankful for you two for doing this. Thank you for being brave enough to get sued and fight them. And that now we can at least read the curriculum, even
they can't get water out of a rock. That's what we said.
Creepy requirements. Tell everybody, you guys, let me know if something changes or there's more information you'd like to come back on. I feel very passionately about this. I am worried it's going to hit Harrison County. I cannot believe it's in Floyd already. It's wild to me that this is happening, but I'm really encouraged that I went to that Indivisible meeting last week, and I was a keynote, and then someone about life, teaching the dangers of LIfeWise was the second keynote. That's great. So the information is getting out there, at least around here, because it's hit here.
A year ago, you wouldn't have heard anything.
No, but this is very new to me. When Christy brought it to me, I didn't know what LIfeWise was.
No, and think about it. You're an advocate. You're an ally. You're in the world. You should know, but you don't.
Right.
And that is by design.
Yeah. Yeah. Be as secretive as possible and be too late once you find out it is too late. Yeah. So we need to let, again, if school board people. Oh yeah. In Floyd County, there was like an effort to get people that supported LIfeWise on the school board. That happened not in this last election, but in 22. So it was really creepy when I saw it happen. I didn't realize it was LIfeWise. I knew it was weird religious things happening, but I didn't quite. So it was a calculated effort to get in the school boards. We have school board elections again for those people in this next November 2026 election. So we could get people that don't support LIfeWise in school board. So maybe you could think about running for school board. That could be one way you can protect the children of your community.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they're closely tied to Moms for Liberty, who's been doing that for years, right? They work very closely with Moms for Liberty. You mentioned Indivisible. That's another thing that you can do aside from advocating to your churches and your local businesses. Get your local activist groups involved, right? You want to talk to people like Indivisible, to your local Democratic parties, to whoever, to whatever
And I would say go to
education.
your Republican Party meetings too, because this isn't a partisan issue. A
It
lot of
shouldn't be.
Republican friends that I have, they attend churches that are not this type of religion. So they're upset about this as well. So yeah,
Yes.
go everywhere
Mhm.
and get it out. And don't
We
just
always
make it the
say, even
partisan
if they don't
issue.
want to hear it, you should talk about it.
You should tell them because they probably want to just assume it's safe because there's a lot to
Mhm.
worry about in the world. It's like, no, no, add this to it. This is a really
Yeah.
big one. Yeah.
Yep.
And if
Oh
you're not
man.
comfortable talking to your community, we will do it. I mean, I do presentations all over. I will go just about anywhere in Indiana. If you guys want me to come, I will come do a presentation. I will talk to whatever community wants to
Mhm.
hear it. I'll talk to
And so on
opposition.
that
I'll
note,
talk to
if you have a
supporters.
story, I was going to say, sorry to interrupt, Zach, but on that note, if you have a story, a complaint, you've seen something crazy on the ground with LifeWise or otherwise that has to do with religious encroachment on the school day, reach out to us.
Oh
That is
yeah,
what we're
that's
here for. We are working as the mouthpiece for the people, and we've never had that before. So it's important that everyone knows where to go to sort of collectively network with each other.
yeah.
And secularism doesn't have that world, especially not when it comes to education, and we've created it. So we really need people to sort of, like you said, spread the word and then come and join us to be educated on the facts.
Yeah. And like I just got in touch with you all like Monday and we scheduled this for 2 days later.
Yep.
So you all are really easy to schedule and come on. So if you're nervous about talking about this, reach out to them. It's really nice. And Susan Pittman did it
Yep.
down here. So we have people down here reaching out and talking. Christy Knable did it. So
Yep.
there are parents, there are people that will reach out
And we
and talk
always
about it.
guarantee anonymity because we understand that in some areas, speaking out about this puts a target not only on your back as a parent, but also maybe on your kid's back. So we understand that it's not feasible for everyone to speak out about. And
Yeah.
that's why you can always come to us and report it, and we will keep you anonymous, but make sure that your story is told.
Yes. If you're watching this for the first time, please follow Project Next. You can subscribe to us on or on YouTube, and then follow us on Facebook. You can invite your friends on Facebook. That helps us a lot. We just celebrated our first anniversary on Sunday, so that's exciting. We've been doing this a year. My co-founder, Dr. Tim Peck, and I. And tomorrow, I'm doing a show about unions, and it's going to be pretty cool. There's like some protesting. What do you call it when you don't go to work? What's that called? A strike. It's about a strike with
Yep.
some really like important working conditions that need to be met. So I'm extremely excited to cover this story tomorrow. We
I'll
should
be
be
tuning
going
in.
live around 2 or 2:30 ish.
Okay.
But we're trying to, I'm trying to pump out all the things we can do to get the word out about issues we need to know about so that we can protect our communities. At Project Next, we're all about stopping the fear, hate, and division, destroying the country. And we're about uniting our communities to work together to fix our actual problems instead of just blaming each other. So it's been quite the journey this year. I've learned a lot about all kinds of tech issues and running a company, and it's been intense, but I get to meet people like you two. Like that's
Same.
a really giant highlight of doing this work. You two rock. You all are heroes. Pat yourselves on the back and keep going, keep going, keep going. I hope you keep growing. I hope you get so many more people and keep fighting this. And let's imagine a world in like a couple years maybe where a law changes and this goes away.
Yep.
That's the ultimate goal, right? We change
Absolutely.
this law. We stop this from happening to our
Mhm.
public schools and our children, and stop
This
this
is America,
indoctrination.
right? When we see something that's going wrong or that we've made a misstep on, that is the American way to go back and make it right. And so
Yeah.
we can do that.
Yeah. Let's do that, you guys. I'm gonna put that out into the world because sometimes things seem hopeless, but you guys are doing this work. We can support you, we
Yep.
can highlight, we can join you, and we can see results. It's not gonna happen tomorrow.
No.
Right now, we're gonna have to play damage control and
Yep.
prepare everybody and try to stop it as much as we can. And then let's like change the law. Hopefully, some more like ACLUs and some more like programs like that will realize this is an encroachment on our freedoms, on our
Yeah.
public education freedoms, and they will, get fighting on it because
Yeah.
that's the ultimate way to stop it. So
Exactly. And that's what we
We're
always tell
getting there.
like document everything, right? Don't go and have a confrontation with your overly religious principal about whatever violation is happening. Document it. Then go and have your conversation, and then go and make your report to the people with teeth, like the FFRF, like the AU.
What's
I mean, let us
FFRF mean?
That's the Freedom from Religion Foundation.
Oh,
And
okay.
they are very useful in this sort of fight. And they do a lot of like the legal side, right? They've got
Oh,
the,
nice.
the legal teeth to get into it.
Yeah.
Report it to us, report it to them, report it to AU. The more we can show collectively that this isn't working, that it's harmful, the more proof that we have that it needs to change.
Yeah.
But we can't
Yeah.
just say this is bad. We have to show them, and we need.
I'm looking forward to the
Yeah.
churches around here becoming informed of it. I'm going to reach out to the ones in my area and try to let them know.
Yeah, because it's not anti-faith, right? That secularism, that neutrality of our public school is there to protect the Christian kids too. And that's what needs to be understood. It is there to protect all of our children, no matter what their faith is, and to protect that faith, because that's the only way it can happen, is to stay neutral. And if we want that individualism, if we want that freedom, then we can't let it die like this.
We
Right.
can't let history be rewritten either. It's always this narrative of we were a Christian nation founded on Christian beliefs. No, we were a nation founded for you are free to be a Christian or whatever else you want. And they are trying very hard to rewrite that history, and we cannot
Yes.
let
We
Yeah.
need the truth. And if you study history, making a country follow one certain religion is very
It
never
dangerous,
works.
causes war and violence. It's terrible. We need
It
freedom
never.
of religion to
Mhm.
have peace.
Yeah,
It's
right.
extremely important.
Plurality, right? Like that's the whole point. That's
You
what I
should
don't
be able
understand.
you should be allowed to practice whatever religion you want or no religion, and your children should too. I
Yep.
mean, wild that this is happening.
Yeah.
Okay, you all, I've taken up so much of your time. Let me know if I can help with Project Next in any way in the future. You guys have my number and contact info. And thank you everybody for watching. Please share and let's work together. And then
Thank
I'll
you.
be doing the union strike show tomorrow. And you guys, thank you, Zachary, Parrish.
Yeah.
Thank you, Molly Gaines, for doing this work. You two rock. Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful day. Bye, you guys.